Hi there, it's Karen of Envision's Artistic Workshop. I have 3 videos for you. This is video 1, and this talks about prepping your wood for your board signs. The second video that we'll discuss is assembling the wood. So if you've got multiple boards, we're going to talk about how to assemble them. The third video would be for applying your stencil. So for this first video, prepping your wood, by now you've already picked up your kit, and that would have all your wood, all your supplies, your stencil, that sort of thing in there. So in your kit, you would have some gloves and some rags, little rags like this. If you do have boards, multiple boards that you're going to be assembling, you're going to have braces and then also the screws. You're also going to have some sandpaper squares, and I would have supplied you with 2 or 3 brushes depending on how many colors you had selected. Beyond that, some other things that you might want to keep at your fingertips here, a power drill if you are assembling, and a hammer if you want more of that distressed look, kind of to beat the board. We'll talk about that. Some painter's tape, tape measure, a squeegee of sorts, or if you don't have that, something flat that you can put the stencil, apply the stencil on, make sure it's on. So even credit card could work too. An extra rag to kind of clean off the wood. So first step, we are going to sand the wood. I've already stained mine because I think it would be really boring for you to watch me sand and stain my boards. So if you want to grab one of your squares, get started on that. Otherwise, if you want to make it a little easier on yourself and you're not afraid of using power drills, or power tools, I should say, a power sander would come in really handy for this. And you can even get kind of more rounded in the corners and on the edges with that too. But if you don't and you just want to go basic with it, most important is, looking at your wood, figuring out which side you want as your front or your face. The back you don't have to worry about, but I definitely would worry about all of your edges and your sides. And that's, kind of just sanding them down on the sides. Ones that really matter is where it was it was cut, so you're going to have some kind of maybe rough edges along there, so making sure all of that is cleaned up. Whoops, I dropped that. And then so all the sides and ends, and also when you figure out what your face is, what your front is, you're going to prep the wood by opening up that grain and sanding the face of it. So going with the grain of the wood, up and down like this. And then when you're all set, then making sure it's dust free, cleaning it all up, getting everything clean. Next step would be to apply your gloves. You're going to go into staining mode here. These little rags are for staining. Now it might be tempting to use a brush, however I feel that a rag works much better because it just gives it a little bit more control in applying the stain and allowing it to soak in a little bit better. You can go real light on it. You don't have to saturate and soak. You don't have to go in 2 to 3 coats on it. Just 1 is fine, because then that way you can still see the wood grain, which I love because I like to see that it's still wood. It is not like a poster or anything like that. So just applying with your stain, or applying your stain with your rag. Nice, and again going with the grain as you notice. Nice easy coat here, and then around the edges. And then if you're doing a porch sign or something that's going to be on an easel, you can do the back as well. And that is something that you hopefully you would have told me, because I would have given you more stain. But if you're going to hang it on the wall, no, I'm going to show you one that has the back stain, because I do sell these, but you don't have to. So you don't have to stain the braces, you don't have to stain the backs, but whatever, I definitely would stain all the edges and the ends, even if it's going inside, and it doesn't matter if you're going staggered like this, because wood is never perfectly flat. When you do apply them all together, you may still have, as you can see, kind of some lifted areas, and if I'm looking at this, I could probably tell that maybe it wasn't stained if you don't stain the ends, or the sides, I should say. So with that, once you have everything stained and it's all dried, it is going to dry very fast. It's not going to have that real pungent smell, because it is you're using water-based, so it dries quickly, so you have to work kind of quickly as well. After that is all done and it's all dried, couple options that you can do. Now, if you have some extra brushes on hand, that comes in handy. Then you have, I guess, more variety on what you want to use for your actual brushing tool versus the sponge brushes. Now, I wish I could have added some more brushes in your kit, but you know, the sponge brushes are really nice because they're, you know, it can be reused, but they are essentially disposable at some point. But with that, if you do get into, you know, more painting and you have these supplies, that's great. This is a dry brush, which it's more wiry, wispy, I guess, versus a soft bristle brush like some of these other ones. And this is a step now that's optional. If you wanted it just the stained look, that's great. Then you can go forward into the video 3 where you're applying your stencil. And well, I should say video 2. If you're only one board, then you can go to video 3. If you are assembling the wood for a multiple board sign like this one, then you're gonna go to video 2. But some other steps here that we'll talk about. We've got it stained. I want to do some dry brushing to it to give it that dimension, more rustic, kind of a weathered look to it. So I can choose any color. So I've got maybe some silvers here, silver lining, dark gray, some white. So I feel like maybe I want to do the white on this, even though what I'm actually going to do with this board is I'm going to paint the whole thing. So it's going to be more like this guy right here. But I'm just showing you this as an additional optional step. So taking your chalk paint, hopefully that if you had decided to do this, that you would have advised me so I can include some in your kit. But I'm just going to get the tips like on one edge or one side of the brush with a little bit of paint, nothing too much, so it doesn't glop on. As you can see, I started in one section and I got a little too heavy with the paint. So I might even kind of scrape this off if I want a real light look. Whoops, scrape it off there, or I might blot it on like a something like a piece of paper or paper toweling or something. And then nice flat, I guess with your hand and the brush, and just kind of lightly just going in. Oh, I went a little heavy because I'm trying to look at the camera at the same time. And then as it gets, you know, less paint on it, then I can go a little crazier with getting wispy with the brush. And but if you do some other things, you know, can kind of wipe it in, blend it in a little bit. If you got too much on there, maybe have a little bit of stain writing and then add some stain to it to kind of go over that, because if you went a little too heavy on certain sections and you don't like that look, or you know, you might even end up putting the stencil and the wording over that anyway, so you might not even have to worry about if you got a little too gloppy. But it does look nice when you get the edges with the paint. And you know, another idea too would be sanding. If you want to sand, get that worn look again. And again, if you've got a power sander, comes in really handy. But you can kind of sand the edges. You can sand in here if you want, or with your power sander again. So sanding is another option, dry brushing is an option. Another option would be if you have a hammer to beat the boards, give it a distressed look. So I can kind of go sideways, kind of switch up the look of my hammer each time I hit. Watch your fingers. And if you've got some screws available, this gives it a little bit of a rigid look. You know, it's hard to see in the I guess the wood if I'm showing it to you from way back there, but it's one of those things. It just kind of adds to it. It adds to the I guess dimension of it. The more weathered, the more rustic look. So then the last option would be if I am painting the whole thing. So as you can see, I had stained this originally. And again, you don't have to stain the backs, but that's just because I sell them. And then I used, on this one, I probably used a sponge brush and a nice smooth coat. I'm not going to paint this whole board in front of you because that would take me like 20 minutes, so you don't need to see that. So, but I'm just kind of showing you nice smooth coats. Again, it doesn't have to be overly saturated, overly thick, because you know what? I like that sanded look, and I'm going to sand through it anyway. So it's just more or less like one layer. So one layer stain, one layer paint, and making sure it's on maybe most of it. I want to say maybe 95% of it. And then the rest is, I'm going to sand through it. So if you are assembling, and we're going to talk about that in video 2, I would actually recommend waiting to paint. So you have all your boards stained, then we'll go into video 2 and we'll assemble it, and then you go back and you paint it. All right, so the next video we will talk about assembling, but that is only if you have multiple boards. All right, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.